Awesome. Welcome everyone back. Anyways, welcome back. I guess Tanis, Arlene, I'm stoked to have you back on the show, and a little bit different show than we've had in the past, but we have an amazing guest as well today. Chef Avi, all the way from London. You're in London right now, Chef?
Yeah, I'm in London right now. The restaurant's in West London. I mean, it's in central London actually, but I live in West London. Yeah.
I love that. Well, Arlene, thank you again for giving us the opportunity to meet people like Chef and Tanis. I can't wait to this amazing event that's going to be happening in Calgary here, only a few weeks away.
I think 4.
4? It's only 4 weeks? You're not counting, are you?
Nah, I'm not counting really.
Not at all. Not at all. Well, Arlene, you're the founder of Terroir internationally and a rock star. Tell us a little bit about what Terroir is, and then we're going to go over to Tanis and talk a little bit about what it means to Calgary, and then Chef jump in, and we're going to definitely talk a little bit about you because you're definitely a rock star on the show. You know, you can Google people and they come up and it's like on Google. That's what you are. So anyways, Arlene, tell us a little bit about Terroir.
Yeah, so Terroir is basically a network of bringing people together that work in the hospitality industry for education, sharing, inspiration. It's taken the format of a symposium for the last 18 years. We started off in Toronto. I worked in the restaurant industry since I was in my 20s-ish. And
not that long ago.
Not that long ago at all. But also too, you know, I tell people all the time, when I started in the hospitality industry, it was not an industry to be revered on any level. People were sort of passing through it and it wasn't given a lot of credibility. And, you know, I wanted to make my life in this industry. I loved it. I love the people. I love the food. I loved the experiences of the conviviality that people had. And I wanted to put together a network of people who could come together and actually create a stronger bond in that network. And then it was also coupled with the idea, because what sits behind our ethos is the commonality of thinking about sustainability in food systems. So it's not just a symposium like any other symposium. It's specifically around people who are committed to ideas of food, you know, doing better food systems, you know, being advocates and leaders in better food systems. And then also the culture of food, you know, connecting people through the culture of food and getting people really excited about it. So again, we started in Toronto. It was hugely successful. We were very, very happy. And during COVID, we were looking for another partner. And that's Tanis and I had been sort of tossing around the idea of working together for a few years. And that connection happened. And we decided we would move the symposium to Calgary, which has been a huge benefit. And I think that for me, it's allowed me to get to know a whole different part of our Canadian hospitality community, which excites me so much.
That's pretty cool. So Tanis, how cool is this? Calgary has this like international rock star event. What's it mean to Calgary?
You know, I think it's amazing for the city and for the province to have. And I had a chance to attend Terroir when I was in Toronto a couple of times, and I was just sort of blown away by what the program was. So for this to be in Alberta is very exciting for me, and it's very exciting for the chef community as well. But as Arlene was talking about, you know, some of the purpose that behind it, when we take a look at agriculture in Alberta, we have over 42,000 farms here. And so we have this amazing, like all the building blocks for an amazing culinary story. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that food production as well. So that opportunity to have both the chefs and that agriculture together is really powerful. So kind of exciting where we are right now and exciting where we can go with it as well.
Yeah, and this is its third year in Calgary, and I can't wait to see how this all looks. You've changed it up a little bit this year. There's 2 events?
Yeah, so we broke it into a series. So we have our May 25th, 26th, and then we're going again November 2nd and 3rd. So it's kind of exciting for us to break it into little pieces. It's a little bit more manageable, but still very exciting to be actually having multiple touch points during the year.
That's awesome. Twice the fun. Right? Chef, okay, first of all, thank you for coming in to our show all the way from West London.
Thanks for having me.
I'm blown away. I know I've got a good idea who you are. I've done a little creeping. But tell us a little bit about your experience, and then we're going to get into, is this your first time to Canada? I'm wondering if it is. But tell us a little bit about your chef experience.
Well, I mean, I grew up in India. I was born and brought up in India, went to university in India, and I started working in India as a chef, as a very young chef. And I had this amazing opportunity to move to the UK to work for a 2 Michelin-starred French restaurant called Hibiscus, run by a really incredible chef called Claude Bozy. So that was my first job in the UK. Never cooked French food, never kind of like worked in a European sort of a proper Michelin-starred restaurant before, and I was just put in the deep end, and that was like my introduction to cooking in the UK. This was way back in 2005. I was there for about a year, and I was just doing crazy hours, like 16, 17 hours, as you would expect. It was like proper old school French kitchen. And I ended up leaving and wanted something a little bit more relaxed. So I went and worked for a guy called John Hoskins, who is a master of wines, which is, again, a different kind of an experience, more relaxed, but, more wine focused. And, there were some other incredible chefs who worked at the Bibendum, another institution in London, worked at La Manoa with, Raymond Blanc. So, it was a nice team of people that I was working for there. And John sent me to the River Cafe one day to say, he just said, why don't you go and eat at the River Cafe? And that was my first ever, time I'd been to the River Cafe. And, I was really mesmerized by the food and the quality of ingredients. And, that's something that is, is the biggest part of my cooking, which is, ingredient driven and seasonality and all of that. So when I went to the River Cafe for the first time for lunch, I was like blown away, and I straight away wanted to work there. And I requested Rose if I could go and do a stage, and she agreed. So eventually, long story short, I did end up at the River Cafe, and I stayed there for 10 years. In this whole time, I cooked a lot of Italian food, and traveled to India quite often because my family are based there. And eventually, I wanted to reach back to my roots, and go back to my roots and kind of reinvent the style of cooking I was doing, go away from, take my learnings from River Cafe and the Italian cuisine and the ethos and bring it back to Indian food. Cause that's the sort of stuff I did growing up. Like, growing up, I went to markets all the time, and, that was for me, when I ate Indian food in London, there was nothing like, those kind of ethos present in any of the Indian restaurants. It was all about the curries and the naans and the chicken tikka masalas and stuff like that. So I wanted to go back and do what River Cafe did, going back to my roots, find, recipes which are Indian inspired, but also draw inspiration from home style cooking, homes in India, rather than, restaurant food. So that's what I'm doing at Pally Hill. So I took on this job as a head chef at Pally Hill in 2020, in between the lockdowns. Probably the worst time in history to open a restaurant, but we managed to still open in between the lockdowns, and we're still open. So I think we must be doing something right.
Chef, can you give us a feel what it's like to have a meal at Pally Hill?
Well, I mean, when you come to Pally Hill, the focus is on seasonality and ingredients. So, what we do is we draw inspiration from recipes from home. So when I talk to my chefs, I say, hey, what did you eat whilst you were growing up? Let's try and find a recipe that is original to, your upbringing, or, has a story or an inspiration that is so strong. So when you eat a dish at Pally Hill, it always comes with an ingredient that really shines. We try to keep the recipes really simple, but also everything has a story behind it. For example, we've got this dish called Mangalore buns with crab sukka. It's one of our most selling dish. We use the most amazing British crab, chroma crabs. We get them live every day. They come on a train from Scotland, and then we cook them and we hand pick them. So we're letting that crab, which is such an amazing ingredient, shine. And we give it like this really amazing, Southern Indian flavors like fennel seeds and, coconut milk and tomatoes and ginger, and we serve it with these very traditional bread or buns, which are made with like banana puree and yogurt, which is you'll never see on an Indian restaurant menu anywhere in the UK, or it's something that's so staple to the whole west coast of India that it never makes it out of there, and we've kind of put that on the table, whilst also using some of the best of British produce. So that's what we do with food at Pally Hill.
So, Chef, have you been to Canada before?
No, I haven't actually. So I'm really excited, really looking forward to it.
I think it's going to be amazing to have you here. And what's your take on terroir? What have you learned a little bit about terroir?
The first time I met Arlene was in Tuscany. We did Terroir Tuscany, and we just turned up, and there were all these amazing bunch of chefs and food producers and archaeologists, and there was a doctor. We all talked about what we did for a living, but the main kind of message from the whole event was it was about sustainability, but also eating from the land, which is what terroir really kind of focuses on, eating from the land, and focusing on what's in season, but also people talking about how they do the same thing no matter where they are in the world. And I think for me that is incredible. That's the big connection, where people are thinking, okay, this is how food should be eaten, or this is how we should be growing our restaurant and food industry.
Chef, where do you think the industry is going to go? We have this like crazy world right now that's happening around us.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all
bringing us together a lot. Sorry, go ahead, Chef. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I mean, I don't think it's all gloomy and it's all doom and gloom, because I think people are getting a lot more kind of aware of sustainability, and we're aware of the wastage that happens in the restaurant industry, but also we're aware of the whole mass industrial farming and all that sort of stuff. I think these days chefs are becoming more and more conscious of it. So I'm hoping in the next 10-15 years time, if every small business, every chef and restaurateur kind of focuses on sustainability, I think we do have a good chance of reversing the whole damage we've already done.
Yeah, you have some weight behind you when you talk about your influence into not only the industry but the overall world itself, right? When we go to restaurants and we see what you guys are doing, that is very avant-garde but also very forward-thinking when it comes to sustainable practices. I think we all can learn a little bit around that.
Yeah.
Arlene, what do you think around this whole thing? Like, you talked about terroir being sustainable and the practices, and every time I go to this event, I learned something new. Like, how important is the educational component to terroir?
Well, it's massive. I mean, it's one of the foundations of what we're doing is we're trying to help share ideas and share inspirational stories so that we can actually better inform ourselves. And I think, when we curate the program and we invite chefs like Avi to come, it's because we believe that they've got an important story to tell and to share with our audience. It's also, as we've been doing this for so long now, a lot of these connections have been long-standing. And so what Avi didn't tell you is we were actually just in Tuscany again 2 weeks ago. So we've actually seen each other on 3 different terroir programs. And what I love so we do some work in Europe as well, not just the symposium in Canada. And what I love is this interplay and this connectivity that we get through all the programs that we do, because we learn to, the people that we're connecting with all share sort of common qualities. And I like to say that I think that the best people that we are always sort of trying to showcase are not just interesting people, but they're also interested in what we're doing, and they're interested in the format and the platform that we're giving them. And that makes them better participants, because it makes them more engaged with the people who are coming as delegates, who are really looking forward to actually making a connection and sharing ideas with them, because it's not a one-way street. I mean, we never wanted to be a platform or a symposium where we were just talking at people all of the time. We try to think of ways to, engage people in different ways. And with tennis and food tourism strategies, like every time we've created a program, it's one of the core principles. It's like, how do we create more engaging program where people can get attached to it? So, last year we had a massive workshop program. Avi's going to be doing a workshop around 3 different types of Indian bread this year. And so it's always like, how do we and he's doing collaborative dinner as well. So, how do we work with people, give them a stage, showcase their stories, but also think about other ways that they can be engaging with our delegates that are really interesting for everyone?
Yeah, I think that's so important. So it's not just an event where it's just talking heads. There's actually activities, because we all learn by rolling up the sleeves and getting our hands dirty, right? And Avi, they sound like they're putting you to work.
Well, I love being in the kitchen, and I love showing what I do.
It's not work.
Yeah,
it's not work. Tanis, what other things that are going to be happening at Terroir in Calgary in the next few weeks here? Is there some other? You can share some other educational components.
Yeah, so well, I guess for Terroir this year for May 25th, we have a big kitchen party, which will be a lot of fun. So we've got 10 local restaurants that are doing this kind of pop-up where you can interact with them, and there'll be live action stations and cooking, and all our guests for Terroir will be there as well. So that's a fun thing for industry, for chefs, restaurateurs, and also for the community. So that's a one-night event, and then we have the full day at SAIT, and we have a combination of like cooking demos. We have bourbon tastings. We have breakfast and lunch and all sorts of fun stuff. So it's a really exciting kind of industry consumer crossover program that if you're a foodie, you'd love it.
Yeah, you're going to take something back, and you'll remember it for, I think, the rest of your life. I know I have every time I went. It's incredible.
Can I add one more thing about education, Jay?
100%.
Something that we've been remiss to actually discuss. So we're working in partnership with SAIT for the second, third year, but officially really trying to figure out a way to integrate the college and the students and how we work with them. And I think that's a really important aspect of it, because if you look at sort of the pinch points of what's challenging in the industry right now, retainment and recruitment of staff is really, really challenging. And I can say from my experience, not just in Europe, but also in Canada, and Avi, you can probably add in about London. Yeah. It's really difficult for people. So getting people passionate and enthusiastic by introducing them to great chefs like Avi, show that there are wonderful opportunities and career streams for you, and to get inspired by someone like him with the young students available, I think it's really magnificent.
Yeah, you know what, Arlene, that's a great point. I want to throw this out to Avi, because I think the more that we have chefs like Avi at events like this, the more that people want to be a part of this. I have this argument, I say it all the time on my shows, is that I'm not necessarily sure we have a problem with labor, that we have a problem telling people how awesome it is to work in this industry. Absolutely. And I think we need more and more advocates like Chef Avi to show people what it is and share the passion, the inspiration that comes from this. I'm doing a talk this week in Whistler on optimism in the industry, right? I'm done talking the negative. I want all the positive and that vibe of being positive in our industry, because there's great stuff happening in our industry. And Chef Avi, what's it mean to be an optimistic chef in the industry today?
I mean, I think it's one of the most creative jobs you can be in. It's like being an artist, or these days it's so glamorous being a chef, but also it's fun, working in the industry, or being a chef is like, gone are the days when you would do crazy hours and you wouldn't be paid well. I've managed to retain my staff for 2.5 years, almost since we opened.
Wow.
Which is brilliant, because we, as chefs, we're trying to change the whole outlook on the industry being really hard, or it's an industry you get into when you have nothing else to do. I think that was the case many years ago, but I'm definitely trying to change it. And also I'm trying to get people into the kitchen who are just interested in cooking, not with the intention of saying, oh, I'm a chef. I'm more like, can you cook? Do you enjoy cooking? Come into the industry and you'll find a passion for what you do. And I've got 4 or 5 chefs on the team who have never worked in a restaurant before, and they're amazing cooks right now. So which I think is brilliant. Yeah,
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Actually, if I can mention, one of the chefs that's working with him right now, who's just in Tuscany with us, met at our last Tuscany program. So this is like where education isn't just this formal thing. Sometimes it's about networking and connecting.
Absolutely. I mean, someone like Liv, we were talking, you just mentioned Arlene, she's someone who just mentioned to me, I'm really interested in in food, and I want to see what it feels like being in a kitchen. Can I come and do a day in your kitchen? I said, yeah, absolutely. And she loved it so much. Now she's, she works full time for us, which I think is really amazing. Like I think she's a textile designer, and now to have a career change, we must be kind of really inspiring her to do, to leave what she's doing and to come and be a chef. So I really love doing stuff like that.
I love it, Chef. And you know what? I can just feel the energy. I really can, the energy from you. And I can't wait to meet you in person in Terroir at the Calgary event here coming up. I want to ask you this last question as we wrap up. And really, it's an honor to meet you and to have you on our show. I ask this a lot to chefs like yourself because I always like getting a little bit behind the curtain of who you are. And I want to ask you this question. If you had your last meal,
yeah,
what would be that last meal, Chef? And with who? And with who?
I mean, I think I would love to have my last meal with my family and friends, but it would be something that is soulful and it's simple and, lots of vegetables because I grew up in a vegetarian family, something that my mum would cook as growing up as a kid. I think simplicity for me is probably the most important thing when it comes to food. And I would love to have a simple dal and rice with some vegetables and, lots of friends, but also I love wine. So I'd love to have some delicious wine as well. And yeah, I mean, just keep it simple, but have all my favorite people around me, my family and friends.
I love that. Now, I have this one question because there's an article that was written about you and talked about your love of rice.
Oh, yeah.
Would you add that in there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, rice is something that's a staple ingredient, or it's something that we always have at the table. Coming from the south of India, some part. I mean, Andhra Pradesh, for example, is called the rice bowl of India, and we produce this. I mean, the second largest producer of rice in the world after China. So, rice is something that I absolutely love. There's so many varieties of rice, and yeah, definitely have some rice for my last meal.
Well, I'm going to bring you a rice gift. Because I happen to know the top producer in Canada as well, Canadian rice. And I'm going to bring you a rice gift when I see you. Now I know what to bring you.
But you try it.
It's amazing, by the way. Anyways, yeah. I want to thank you, Chef. Arlene Tanis, always a pleasure having you on our show and always amazing what you put together at this event in Calgary. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time this morning, this evening, whatever times we're all in. But thanks again for joining us on our late night show.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.